4 and 5 gave them some headaches. So I'm going to rush through 2 and 3 and then pay some attention to 4 and 5. Okay, so I'm going to start off by doing the obvious steps. So the obvious steps here would be to write this one. No, what are you doing? I don't want that. Okay, to write that one as sine squared x over cos squared x. Onthou ek het gister vir julle gewys dat dit werk vir tot die mag 2 en dit werk vir tot die mag 3. And it also works for to the power of just 1. So tan x is sine x over cos x. Tan squared x is sine squared x over cos squared x, etc., etc. Okay, so the one that I highlighted green gets expanded to the green fraction below it. This one I can write as cos squared x. I'm going to stick with different colors of highlighters to show you guys. This expression can be simplified to cos squared x. And then by using simple multiplication, I just say that simplifies to sine squared x. Good. Okay. Carrying on to number 3. Hierso kan ons sê hierdie hakkie kan vereenvoudig word na sin kwadraat x toe. Goed? Okay. En onthou daai kwadraat, hy staan nou op 'n weird plek, maar dit is nog steeds 'n gewone kwadraat. So sin kwadraat x gedeel deur sin x kanselleer een van hulle uit en dan het jy net oor sin x. So far so good. Né? Okay, en dan nommer 4 waar julle sê julle 'n bietjie gehak het. Man, this one is so easy. Don't worry if you didn't see it the first time. Okay, so this one starts with factorizing out a common factor of 8. Okay, sien julle ons kan 'n gemeene faktor van 8 daar uithaal. So if I factorized out the 8, then I'm left with sine squared theta plus cos squared theta. Okay, and this part can be written as what? 1. And therefore you are left with 8 times 1, which is 8. Good? Choo, choo, choo. Number 5. Okay, where do you want to start? Well, there's really nothing else to do than go and write tan of x as sine of x over cos of x. So ek gaan skryf vir my sin x oor cos x. So. Okay. En dan wat gaan gebeur is hierdie kos en daai kos gaan mekaar mos uitkanselleer. Because remember that second one is cos x over 1. So it's at the top of a fraction. So it can cancel out something at the bottom of a fraction. Okay. And then I'm just left with sine x times sine x. Which is what? Good. En as wat kan ek daai hierdie stukkie skryf? Mooi. How are we feeling about that? Good. Okay, so now we are still busy with identities, but this is similar to how you can expect them in a test or an exam. So, still busy with identities? No, man. Some days the technology, it's just too much for me. Okay, so we're still going to use those two identities while proving an identity. So they might say something like, prove the following. Okay, so do you see we have two sides of the equation and they are asking you to prove that that is true. That sine to the power of 4x minus cos to the power of 4x is the same as 1 minus 2 cos squared x. So you have to prove that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. Now there are three different ways to do this. You can either go left-hand side and then simplify. So you simplify the left-hand side until you get to 1 minus 2 cos squared x. Or you can go right-hand side and simplify. So you meddle around with 1 minus 2 cos squared x, mess around with it a bit, substitute some stuff, and see if you can get to sine to the power of 4x minus cos to the power of 4x. Or you can do a bit of both. So jy kan 'n bietjie aan die een kant vereenvoudig en 'n bietjie aan die ander kant vereenvoudig en kyk of jy ergens tussenin twee goed kan kry wat gelyk is aan mekaar. Okay. Traditionally, you only do one side. But once it gets more complicated and you get stuck on them and you see, okay, I've gone as far as I can with the one side, then don't just move on to the next question and think, okay, this identity has been lost for mankind. See if there is something that you can obviously do on the other side, and maybe the two meet in the middle. Okay, but with identities is practice, practice, practice. Okay, some skills to look out for. You need to apply these two. Okay, so you will have to apply those two when you are proving identities. Then other things that you can use from past mathematical knowledge is factorization, which is nudge nudge wink wink what we are going to do with this one. Okay, so jy gaan moet kan faktorisering gebruik en as jy sien aan die een kant If you're working with fractions on the one side, then combine all of them into one fraction. So get a common denominator, put them all on one fraction. Okay, hier is maar net goedjies om voor uit te kyk. So this isn't like set in stone that you will step 1 do this, step 2 do this, step 3 do this. But if you get an identity, these are the ones that you're looking out for. You're looking out for, do I have a sine squared x plus cos squared x that I can quickly just change into a 1? Do I have a tan x that I can go and change into sine x over cos x? Or the other way around, you might have a sine x over cos x that you can go and change into a tan x. So if we're looking at this one here, do you see that I don't have either of those identities there? No, not on the left-hand side, nor on the right-hand side. I don't have a tan there that I can go and change, and I don't have a sine squared plus cos squared. Stem julle saam? Okay, so now let's look. We also don't have any fractions, so I'm definitely not using fractions. But if you look at the left-hand side, and this is how you have to practice to write them down. So you identify, I'm going to manipulate on the left-hand side. Okay, because on the left-hand side, what type of factorization can I do with those two? Let me write them for you in easier terms. Let's say I had y to the power of 4 minus z to the power of 4. How can that be factorized? It's the difference between two squares. You see that? Okay, so onthou enige ewe getal exponent. So any even number in the exponent is the difference between two squares. You just halve the exponent in the brackets. So this one can be written as sine 2x plus cos 2x, squared x, sine squared x minus cos squared x. Nee? So sê nou maar dit was sin tot die mag 6x minus cos tot die mag 6x. Dan sou my twee hakies gewees het sin tot die mag 3x plus cos tot die mag 3x en sin tot die mag 3x minus cos tot die mag 3x. So always when it's an even number, you just halve it in the next step. Okay. Now look at your skills again. What do you see? What do you see? 1. Do you see that first bracket can be written as 1? Okay, so now I'm just left with sine squared x minus cos squared x. Okay, so you can go one of two ways now. You can go and factorize that again. Do you see? So nou is my hint vir julle om te kyk na by wat jy moet uitkom. So obviously you have to get to this. Do you agree? Okay. Do you see in terms of trigonometrical functions, we only have one type in our answer, in the green. We only have cos squared. So this cos squared, I'm going to leave there because it seems to fit into the puzzle of what I'm working towards. Do you see? Is there a way for us to write sin squared x in cos squared x as well, in terms of cos squared x? Yes? 1 minus cos squared x. So that's what I'm going to do. So you need to use your right-hand side as a little clue of what you are working towards. And then it's as easy as simplifying.